1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I have come up, let me make a day, I have come up with a brand new formula, not a formula, sorry, a brand new cheat or command that can be used that I think should absolutely be implemented in the game because I think it's a really cool idea. Also, I spent a lot of time working out the kinks for this thing, so it would be really cool if this thing was actually in the game. First off, let me open my book to do a little bit of explaining. So, this is the new command. It's something, I don't know exactly what it'll be, maybe something along the lines of /pattern. Now, I have two ideas of how this is going to work. But basically, it works like you easily develop patterns like this. Now, just ignore the note block for a second. Pretend that they're all still bookshelves. Alright, now at this point right here, you can see that there's a specific pattern here, right? This is a checkerboard pattern. This is a different type of pattern. These two patterns are separate. This is a different type of pattern right here. These are all different patterns, and they all have different spaces in between them, right? And you can even go into the 3D space. These are all 3D patterns right here. Now, how would you implement these patterns? Well, you have to talk about how many spaces you want in any particular direction, and then you have to give the amount of breaks, or spaces that are breaks in between. So I wrote this book. Oops, I wrote this book. So you enter the origin coordinates, which would be where the note block is. Remember that note block I had? I have the sign right here, right? Note block is supposed to represent the origin. Now, because it represents the origin, it means that in reality, it's going to be a note block if you were to type the command. But I have to put this note block, it would be a bookshelf if you were to type it in the command. But so that the people who are looking at this can understand, this is where, if you were to sit here where this note block is and type the command, then that's how the command would work out. Now, it's going to have 3 keys of 3 patterns and then the block choice. So the pattern goes placements, breaks, and max. It will start with the placement. Decide how many placements you want before a break. So for example, if you want, 3 and then a break of 1, 3 and then a break of 1, that's what it is. The breaks are obviously the breaks I was just mentioning. It represents how many spaces you want before you get back to the placement. So say you want a break of 2, you get 2 spaces that are empty, and then you get back to your placements again. The key isn't really anything, it's just for me to explain the idea of it. So the key would be like a specific set of a code for one specific direction. So you can either use it for X, Y, Z, negative X, negative Y, negative Z. The direction is going to be determined by, it's going to be the very first thing you see, and the number is going to be either 1 or 0 to determine whether it's positive or negative. Alright, so it might look something along the lines of this. Slash pattern, and then, tilde, 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 which represents the origin, and then 1, 1, 0, 3, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 1, 0, 1. Bone underscore block. Now, if you were to write this into command, it would just look like a 3x2 rectangle, because as you can see, there's 1 space, 1 placement, 0 breaks, and then 3 maximum, which means that you're getting 3 straight lines without any breaks in between. And the same thing for the, did I write this down 1, 1, 0, 2? I did write this down wrong, so pretend that the 1, 1, 0, 2 is behind the 1, 1, 0, 1. That way it's lying on the ground. Or you can look at it the way it is and pretend that it's a 3x2 rectangle sticking up out of the ground going in the positive Y direction. But ignore this is kind of wrong. Anyways, if the max is 1, then it doesn't matter if the direction is positive or negative, because you're only going to have that 1 layer. If the breaks are 0, it means that the blocks are side to side in that direction. So for example, I don't have any breaks in between this line. That means that there's 0 breaks in between, which means that they're all next to each other. If that's the case, you can leave the placements as 1. I think I said that, but I don't know. A 6x6 checkerboard pattern on the ground would have a series of, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1 break in between, 1, 1, 0, 1, because you're not going up or down, 1, 1, 1, 3, because you're having the exact same pattern, except it's in the positive Z direction instead. Obviously, I'm writing this down differently for the concepts. I used to write it down a little bit more complicated, but I kind of like dumbed it down a little bit. So remember, if you don't have any breaks in a given direction, so you have like 3 in a row and that's it, you don't have any breaks at all, then just type 1 for your placement, and then you just set your max as how many you want in your series. Okay, also for the placements and max on any direction, it can't be 0, it has to at least be 1. So if you have so even if you are not going up or down in the Y direction, you still have to have a max of 1 you still have to have a max of 1 and a placement of 1, because that's what it's going to be. From the Y direction, you're going to have at least 1 placement. Another method, and I think it says right here, if you have at least 1 break, you have to have more than 1 max. For example, actually I'm just saying that if you have 1 break, the minimum that you have to have is 2. You have 1 break and then 1 again. Another method I could do is to replace the maximum number. Now this is just for me as a concept. Instead of doing the maximum number, you could set it to the number of placements. It's less freedom, but it's more linearity. Regardless, the origin will always be in the corner. This is something to keep in mind. You can't do this from the center of a pattern. It has to always be in one of the corners. Maybe it's going to be in, the positive X, positive Y, positive Z, negative X, negative Y, or negative Z direction, but it's always going to be in the corners for each of the side. It just depends on if it's negative X, negative Y, or negative Z. That's it. I don't know why I made another page. That's my bad. So here's an example. Checkerboard pattern, right? 1, positive, this is the origin, right? So 1 in the positive X direction, and then a break, which is right here. This is the break right here. And then we have a total of 3. Well, this is actually the X direction right here. So this would be 1 placement, 1 break, and then you do that for a total of 3 blocks. And do the same here. 1 placement, 1 break, 1 placement, 1 break, 1 placement, 1 break. Actually, these are a little bit misleading. These are going to be from a different series. So I was kind of giving you the idea, though, is what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of give you the idea of what it would look like, but these are not here. It's just going to look like this. And then for this one, so I'm sorry about that if that was misleading. Obviously, in the Y direction, you have 1. It doesn't matter if it's 0 or 1 because it's only 1. So you go up or down, it doesn't matter because there's only 1. This one right here, let's see. 1, 2, 1, 6. So in the positive X direction, we're going, I have positive X direction, which is why it's 1. Now you have 2, so it's going to be 1, 2, all right? And then we have 1 break, so it's going to be 1. And we're going to keep doing that until we get 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is how it's going to look like. In the positive Y direction, actually positive or negative, once again, doesn't matter because it's only 1, 1, 0, 1. Sure, that's fine. Positive Z direction, we're going to have 1 because that's positive. 1 is going to be our set before our breaks, but because our breaks is 0, the 1 is just there to let you know that there is a placement happening, because there has to be at least 1 placement in the X direction, in the Z direction. And we're going to have 4 as our max. So it's going to be 1 times 4, which means it's going to be just these 4 blocks right here. And then as you can see, that's the amount of spaces we have here. And here's another good example. My next example I'll do 3D. 1, 2, 1, 6. So we have positive X direction, 2 break, 2, 1 break, and we keep doing that until we have a total of 6. If this said 1, 2, 1, 5, then we would just get rid of this last layer because you filled up as many as you could and you got to 5. This is the last layer. But because it's 6, we're going to keep it the way it is. And then obviously 1, 2, 1, 6 is the same thing for this direction. So I just want to add these 2 little things right here too. So let me see real quick. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. So by the way, when I was referring to the complex stuff, this is kind of what I was referring to. So I said X, 1 placement, 1 break, 3 max. Now this is kind of a little bit confusing, which is why I just went with the linear stuff. But it does make it a little bit harder to read. But it's okay, because this isn't how you write down in the commands anyways. And I also did this for this one as well. I also wanted to show off this real quick. When I was referring to the 2 by 3, now this isn't necessarily this isn't correct the way it is. Or this is the correct the way it was when I said it, but not the way it was written. If I had done it the way it was written, then it would look like this, because that is 1, 1, 0, 3. As you can see, it's a max of 3. 1, 1, 0, 2. It's going up 2, and that's the maximum. 1, 1, 0, 1. We're not going in the Z direction. So this is kind of how it's supposed to be written, but like I said, I messed up when I spoke, and I apologize if that confused you, but I think hopefully I cleared it up now. Also, another thing I wanted to point out is for the sets. If we were going to do, for example, sets, then you would probably have to write down the you would have to write down the placements, because, for example, if I wanted to say this one right here, right, this is 3 sets of 2 in the positive X direction with a break of 1 in between. So in this case, I would have to say, you know, something along, if we're gonna, this isn't the same formula, so if we're gonna say it like this, we're gonna have to say 1, and then somebody's outside, 1, and then we're gonna have 2, a break of 1, and we're gonna have 3 total sets. Okay, if that makes any sense. But this is because we're in this direction. If we were doing Y, well, Y direction actually wouldn't change. It would still be 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, or 0, 1, 0, 1. It could be this. Now, I guess I can explain it like this. It could either be this or this. It doesn't matter if it's either, if it's one or the other, because the maximum is 1. If the maximum is 1, the direction doesn't matter. But in the Z direction, if we're doing sets and not maximum, then we have to say 1, which is still the positive Z direction, and we would have to say the maximum, a number of placements. And in this case, in the Z direction, in this case, our placements are going to be 4, because our sets are 1. So we would do 1, 4, 0, 1. No breaks in between. We have 4 placements, no breaks in between, and we have 1 set. So let me show you an example where that's not the case. So in this case right here, right? This is what it originally looks like if you do maximum. If you were to do sets, then it would have to be 1, 2, because it's 2 going in this direction, and then 1, because there's 1 space in between, 3 sets, and it would be the same in both this direction. It would be both in the same X in the both. It would be both the same in the X and Y direction. This one would be the same, except replace the 6 with 3 for both directions, because it's the same. For this one would be interesting, because for the placements here that we have, actually no, it doesn't matter for this one. I think really the only case where it matters is this one, because this is the only one where they're touching each other. And I could just change the rules for that, but I don't know. We're going to keep it the way it is. I'll do one last example. In this case, it would be, if we're doing the number of sets, it would be, well, this is negative X direction, so it would be 0, and then 1, 1. Actually, ironically enough, it would be the maximum. Because the placements are the same as the sets, it's going to be the exact same. 1, 1, 1, 2, in the Y direction would still be the same, because it's 2 sets, 2 placements, or 2 sets of 1 placement. That's the same thing. 1, 3, 1, 6, however, where you do 1 and then 3 in this direction, and then 1 space, and then another 3. It would be mostly the same, except for you would place the 6 with 2, because that's how many sets there are. Basically, you can just divide the current maximum by the 3. But remember, like I said, this thing that you said, this thing where I was talking about, where you can just do this, and you can change that number. If you were to change that number to 5 for the X direction, so it would be 1, 2, 2, 5, you can do that. But you can't do that if I do sets. So that's going to the idea of freedoms, because every set has to be the exact same. You can't just be limited by, your number of, series. So anyways, I think that's a pretty good explanation of the idea of this whole concept. So I hope that you guys think that it was cool, because it took me kind of a little bit to think about the mechanics of it, but that's okay.